Hey, Allison Verhalen here, and this week I want to talk to you about evergreen content, which is super important for your SEO as well as your overall content strategy. Evergreen content is content that is always relevant, right? So, for example, we have 4th of July coming up, so there are probably a lot of searches for, let's say, fireworks, right? Maybe people are searching for fireworks, late June, early July, and then maybe a little bit in later July and August if they're having fun summer activities that include fireworks. But for the most part, it's really concentrated when people are looking for that stuff. And then for the rest of the year, no one cares, right? They're moving on to other things. So that is not evergreen. That is a very timely topic. By contrast, if you're looking for something like, what makes a good financial planner, or how can I find a good attorney in my area that does divorces, right? Whatever it is that they're looking for should be something where the answer is always going to be the same, or at least similar. Sometimes you need to tweak your evergreen content after a while, but on the whole, the content that you're creating, the questions that you're answering, questions are not going to change, answers are not going to change significantly. So why do you need evergreen content in your strategy? It is super important. It creates a much higher ROI for your website, and it's better for your SEO. So it takes Google a while to index your content and really figure out which searches to pair it with, which you have to keep in mind. So that really comes into play with evergreen content, because if you're writing about something now and publishing it when it has to do with, fireworks or Independence Day or whatever you want it to be about, and it's super timely, maybe by the time Google indexes it and figures out which searches to pair it with, no one is searching for it anymore. Sometimes it takes a while just to gain that traction, both with Google and with your audience. And that evergreen content is a great way to gain that traction, right? So Google can index your content, it can read, not just your headlines and your alt tags, but all of the juicy content that's in there, and find all the keywords and really figure out what it is that your content is all about before it figures out which searches to pair that content with. So the longer that your content is relevant, if it's still relevant after Google is done doing all that, which can take 2 to 3 months, right? It's not uncommon for a blog post to take that long to start showing up in online searches. Or maybe it shows up in searches and gets a little bit of traffic, but it usually sees a spike in traffic after it's been around for a while. So if it's evergreen content and it's still relevant months or even years later, that's when you really get the benefit of the traffic for that particular blog post. Yes, you should still be blogging hopefully every week, every 2 to 3 weeks if that's all you can manage, but on a consistent schedule, because the more you do that, the more that's going to drive traffic to your website and position you as an authority in your industry. But you should always make sure, I like to switch it up between timely and evergreen content. SEO for me is one that's almost always timely, because Google keeps changing their algorithm, and something that worked a while back might not necessarily work so well in a few months. So those are the kinds of posts that I never republish. But the posts about blogging and content strategy and PPC and why you need to be blogging and why you need a content strategy and how to create a marketing persona, those are the things that are always going to be relevant to my audience. People are continuing to search for that information. The answers have not significantly changed. So that is all stuff that I focus on creating, at least once a month or so. And then I can keep using that content, and I can use it to keep generating traffic, driving traffic to my website. So it's super important that for your SEO that you have that evergreen content. And then sometimes the older it gets, it can actually benefit your SEO, because it's been around for a while and it has built up that credibility and that authority, so that when Google sees other content coming from your website, you've already built that domain authority, because your evergreen content has been doing that work for you. And this can work naturally too with real live humans who are finding your website, right? Maybe they find your website through an evergreen post that you wrote, and they really like what they see. So they explore your site a little, and maybe they find one of your more recent blog posts, which is on a more timely topic. So that's how they end up finding that content. And then, maybe they sign up for your newsletter or follow you on social media or whatever that next step is in the buyer journey. Sometimes it can take more than just one blog post, depending on the blog post and depending on your industry. So you can actually use the evergreen content to drive more traffic to your timely content, which is great. We are going to talk a little bit more about keywords and your keyword strategy as it relates to your evergreen content, but do just keep in mind that anytime you're choosing a topic to write about, you have to do your keyword research first. You have to make sure it's getting a fairly high search volume and not a ton of competition. But maybe when you're looking for a particular keyword, a particular evergreen topic, maybe right now it has, not a ton of competition. But then later on, as your competition starts to figure out, hey, this is a great keyword, we should be targeting this, the competition might get a little more steep. So there is absolutely something to be said for kind of getting in early on those topics and writing about them and targeting those keywords sooner rather than later, so that, when everyone else starts targeting them, they're kind of like behind the wagon, and Google will know that Google will prioritize your content because it's older. There are searches where Google knows that it's more timely, and so it will prioritize the more recent blog posts or the more recent content that was published, but that's not always the case, right? So there are times where having the older content that was there first and kind of established you as an authority can actually benefit you, so that when other people are kind of trying to hitch their train to that wagon, Google's like, I don't know, this person was here first. So always keep that in mind. So now that we know why your evergreen content is so important for your strategy, that's great, but it's easier said than done, right? And now it's like, okay, so how do I know what's evergreen? So first of all is your FAQs. What are the questions that you get over and over and over again, no matter how long you've been in business, right? Is it what is an IRA, or how can I protect assets if I'm getting divorced, right? Those are the kinds of questions that you probably hear over and over and over again if you're in those industries. So those are great blog post topics that you should write about and continue to take advantage of those over and over and over again, because again, that can keep driving traffic to your website for months, even years to come. So, if you've been in business for any time at all, what are the questions that you keep hearing? So go back to hopefully you already have either a blog post or a page on your website that covers those most commonly asked questions, and look to those for evergreen topic ideas. What can you use to create a blog post around? Next up is your keyword research. So again, if people are asking you questions, that's great, but maybe they're the only ones asking that question. Maybe the people who are searching for you online are not really searching for that. Maybe they don't care. So always do your keyword research first to make sure that the topic that you are covering is going to benefit you when it comes to doing those online searches. So do your keyword research, make sure that you're really taking advantage of all the data that your keywords, your tool generates, because they give you a lot of data. I use SearchStat. It is my favorite SEO tool. It gives me the search volume, the SEO competition, the cost per click, the competition as far as a list of like who all is using this particular keyword, and I've talked about this before, but that's something I look at to make sure that the topic I want to write about is relevant to the keyword, because maybe I think I want to write about something and I think this is a great keyword, but it turns out that keyword means something else, or people who search that keyword are looking for something other than what I want to write about. So I always look at the competition and make sure that my competition is actually using that keyword. That's always an indication that it's a good keyword that you should be targeting. But what you should focus on when it comes to evergreen content is the interest over time. So your keyword research tool will tell you what is the average search, again, that search volume, that one number that you get at the top, that is the average search volume per month that particular keyword gets. If it's a timely keyword, then it might be a spike. So something like fireworks, like we said, right? Someone might be searching for fireworks now or in a few weeks, and then in 2 or 3 months from now, no one cares because they're moving on to apples and pumpkins, right? So that can really skew that number because you've got all those searches in a short time span, and then you got that flat line or just a very low line with a few squiggles for the rest of the year. So what Google or what the keyword research tool is going to do is it's going to take that really high number and divide it over those 12 months. So that's going to be the average search volume. That's going to be that number that shows up at the top. When in reality, you're getting a lot more searches than that in a small time frame, but for the rest of the year, you have almost no searches for that particular keyword. So look at that graph and look at that interest over time. The evergreen content will be the stuff, it might have peaks and valleys and throughout the year, and that's fine. But if it has like 1 or 2 spikes and then it's flat-ish for the rest of the year, that is a timely topic. That is not something you want to invest in as an evergreen topic. Maybe there you can still absolutely take advantage of that timely topic right now or in a few months, and that's great. Go ahead and do that, but it's not going to be evergreen content. So your strategy is going to be a little bit different. So look at that interest over time. And then finally, holidays. So I know I'm kind of contradicting myself here because holidays are technically timely content, but holidays come around every year. So you can use that same post celebrating Independence Day or New Year's or whatever it is you want to celebrate. You can use that over and over again. So people are going to be searching, for example, New Year's resolutions over and over, like every late December, early January, we get all these searches, we get all this content people are looking for as to how to accomplish their goals for the next year. So if you wrote a blog post on New Year's resolutions, then absolutely take advantage of that, right? Next up is how to create evergreen content. So you got your topics. Now, how are you going to make sure that the topic is evergreen? And I have 2 big tips for you here. One is make sure your angle is evergreen. So you can have the topic, but maybe your evergreen is like a hot take, right? Maybe everyone thinks that a certain thing in your industry works one way and you want to be like, no, that's not true. It works this way. That might be more timely because the angle can change over time. Maybe people who were thinking about it one way start to change their view and start to see it your way. And so your hot take is no longer really a hot take. So make sure that that angle, however you're presenting this topic and this information, is always going to be relevant. Don't just jump on the bandwagon of whatever people are writing about now or try to. Contradicting people can be a great way to write timely content. And again, that's great. And there's a time and a place for that, but it's not going to be your evergreen content. Next up is your evergreen language. So if you start using phrases like, oh, this month or last year or in year 2021, right? That dates your blog. It literally dates your blog posts. So don't do that, because if people are searching for it and they're finding this content years from now, but they see those references to specific points in time, that's when they're going to check the date of the blog post and be like, wait, when was this published? Is this still relevant? Even if they were not necessarily looking for the publication date initially, when they searched for it and found your blog posts, having that timely, those little words and phrases in your content that really date it, that can absolutely have an effect. So keep that in mind and just try to make sure that it's as evergreen as possible year round. And again, Google takes that into account as well. Google will see those things and be like, this might not be as relevant anymore. So watch your language. So now how do you make the most of your evergreen content? So you have this great blog post or landing page or video that you've made and it's evergreen and it's going to be great. How do you make sure that you get the most out of that evergreen content? Number one is distribute it. It is kind of a catch-22 with content where you want to create content in order to boost your SEO and get more traffic, but boosting your SEO can also involve getting more, like you get more traffic in order to boost your SEO, which then boosts your traffic. It feels like a bit of a catch-22 in that you need to get that traffic in order to get the SEO rankings in order to get the traffic, right? It sounds a little convoluted, but one of the ways you get around that is by distributing your content so that you can get that organic traffic to your website before Google has even had time to index it. So Google's busy indexing it and figuring out which searches to match your content with, and it's seeing that you're getting organic traffic. So that will help Google. Again, it'll help Google index your content and also make Google go, hey, people are already clicking on this and viewing this. There's probably some value to it. So that's going to boost your ranking. So share it on social media, distribute it in your newsletter, let people know when they're subscribing that you have a new blog post, that it's about this topic they've probably had questions about. Absolutely take advantage of that and repurpose your evergreen content. I am always a big proponent of repurposing your content and using it in as many different mediums as you can. You can, create a video and use the audio as a podcast and use the transcript as a blog post and then share it on social media. So you're on all these different platforms without really doing all that much work. And without coming up with a whole bunch of topics, right? You've got one topic, you've got your topic of the week or the month or whatever it is, and you're just spreading it out on all the different platforms to really get the most out of it. I always recommend doing that, but especially with evergreen content, because it has so much more mileage than the timely content. And finally, update your evergreen content. You can always, like I said with the holidays, you can take it down, update it a little bit, tweak it, put the new date in there, and then republish it. And it will have that publication date will be more recent. It'll be a new publication date. It looks like brand new content. Google will treat it just like brand new content. So I am always in favor of updating old content. So that's it. Those are my tips as to what evergreen content is, why you need it in your content and SEO strategy, and how to implement it and really get the most out of it. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I am at info@avwritingservices.com. I also have content, evergreen and timely, about this and other aspects relating to SEO and content strategy. So absolutely feel free to check that out. That is all at avwritingservices.com. That is it for me. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week, and I will see you next time.